Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. It's Louisa Munson here from Portugal, 6:31 a.m. Feels too early, Rick. What time is it where you are, my love?
2:31 p.m. A much more conducive time of day. Although, having said that, the mornings, I'm a morning person, so
Yeah.
I get up before it's light, so I love that time of day.
Believe it or not, I'm a morning person as well. But like at the moment, I'm looking at my window and it's dark and it's peeing down with rain. We've just started to wear cardigans and we've put the heating on a little bit this week. So what's it like where you are at the moment?
Well, it's raining here, and I've just put a shirt on over my t-shirt, so it's a little bit cooler here.
Yeah. So in mainland Europe, we're sort of heading into this time of, I don't know, where we should be maybe looking after ourselves a little bit more, into a time of maybe having a little bit of respite and looking after ourselves. And
Yes.
it kind of fits in with the theme for today's show, which is hanging on to the past. Because this is the time of year when you really need to let go of the summer and let go of all that brightness and maybe go deep inside.
Exactly.
So
But just like the bear goes into hibernation in the winter.
yeah, I love
and
that.
it doesn't eat; it just lives off its body fat.
I could do that.
And that's a time for regeneration and renewal. So I think that's conducive to just slowing down the pace a little bit and reevaluating what's important.
Yeah, well, it's funny because just off air we were just talking, and I actually feel like I want to be a bear today. I want to go back to bed, get a few things sorted out, and then crawl back into my cave, which is my duvet, gather the kids around, and then just have a nice, relaxing afternoon. So, hanging on to the past.
Hanging on to the past.
How do we do this exactly, Rick? And why do we do this? Let's get it all out on the table.
All right. Well, let's define it a little bit. The past is something that's happened previously. Present time is this glorious sacred moment that we're experiencing right now.
Yep.
So we got this one. Oh, that one's gone now. They don't last very long.
No,
Present time.
they go just like
And
that.
in the future, where we mock something up in the future that we would like to experience, but we are actually experiencing that mock-up in present time. And we're doing the same with the past. If we think about what did the house look like when I was 11 years of age, I'm actually bringing that memory into present time.
Yeah.
So in essence, in true essence, there is only this moment of now, this precious moment of now. However, as we live in a dualistic world, and we have a predominance of left hemisphere, which is very linear. So it means that something has to start, continue, and stop somewhere. The right hemisphere sees the bigger picture, and beyond this dimension, this realm, there is no time. There is only just present time. So that's laying down the. We do have a tendency to revisit the past and regurgitate. Actually, it can be very pleasure moments. We can stuck in pleasant moments just as much as we can get stuck into painful, traumatic moments. Both can be damaging in as much as there's a longing for something back there. Oh, I wish our relationship was like it when we first met. Or when I was, 20, I could run a marathon. Whatever it is that these were high points in our life that we get stuck on.
Yeah.
Or they can be some horrible, traumatic period of life that is filled with pain and anguish. And the ego mind, tends to go back there and feel a victimhood or blame or a lack of forgiveness. So there's nothing wrong with the past. There's nothing wrong with the future. But we do need to be able to scan back there and look at it and then come back into present time, just as we need to go into the future, decide what we want to create and manifest, and then come back into present time. That's
Yeah.
the background of it.
Yeah. I wonder if we've always had the concept of time in the future. I guess. And if so, for what reason? I'm guessing like we have access to remembering the past so that we can learn from our mistakes, and keep ourselves
Yes.
safe.
Yeah.
Like which foods aren't poisonous, and what's happened in our tribes and this, that, and the other. And I guess looking to the future can be useful. But when do you think it became such a massive preoccupation?
Well, I think to answer your question, the first part, I think we will, in this dualistic world of hot and cold, day and night, we will always have time because we need the relativity to
Yeah.
explore both sides of this one coin, but two sides.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that doesn't mean that we can't extract ourselves out of that and see through the illusion of time and just recognize it for what it is. It was just a moment in time that I'm recalling, or it's a moment in time in the future that I'm creating. So why do we go back there? It's because we've virtually made, and I just wrote about this, I think I sent you an article this morning, we've made the mind the master.
Right.
So we have a tendency to believe what the mind is saying as opposed to what our heart is saying. And our heart, our intuition, that which animates these physical bodies, sees the bigger picture. But the mind, especially the left hemisphere, very linear and very scientific, logical, analytical. It wants to know every minute detail. And we've tended to, our education system has tended to educate the left hemisphere more than the right hemisphere, which tends to be more artistic and intuitive, curious, and holistic, perhaps we could call it that. So it's, in short, it's the preference to listen to the mind and the thoughts as opposed to listening to our heart and our intuition. And that's what gets us stuck there.
Yeah. Yes, I can see how that would happen for sure. Now, we're talking about hanging on to the past. How would you define that differently from just being able to observe the past, and observe the future?
Yeah, the word longing comes to mind.
Yeah.
We're longing to have something that we had in terms of a pleasure moment or moments, or a fragment of our life that was extremely pleasing and pleasurable and loving and exciting. We have a tendency to long for that again, as opposed to recreating it in present time with the circumstances around us. So that's one side of the coin. The other side is the pain and suffering that we can't let go of because we are in a state of victimhood or in a state of unforgiving. I'm never going to forgive that person. Right. So that holds us on the time track back there.
Yeah.
So those are two elements that can keep us hanging on to the past. And the question we need to ask ourselves in present time is, how does this serve me? Because if we are hanging on to the past, it obviously has served us to have that sensation of the past in some shape or form. It's protected us in some way, or it's made us feel uplifting in some way. But does it serve?
I've lost you there. What's happened?
Potentially could.
I lost you. Oh, and then I heard you again. Where did you go? I'm holding on to you, Rick.
Hang on.
Go on.
Yes.
Where were you? Do you remember? Serves us in some
No,
way.
because my camera's on, so I can rabbiting on. and believe that you can see me as well.
No.
So let me see if I can reiterate it. We hang on to the past because we're longing for something. There's a desire. There's almost habitual, or must have this again.
Mm.
And or I don't want that again, but I'm not prepared to let it go. So I need to we need to ask ourselves the question, how does it serve us to
Yes.
spend so much time in the past? Because what it's doing is it's denying us this precious moment of now.
Yeah. Yes. And you mentioned forgiveness and unforgiveness that might hold you in the past. Looks like I've lost you there. It looked like you were just fast asleep then. With your eyes shut.
No, I'm still here. Just assume I'm not going anywhere. So just assume I'm still here, even if my eyes are closed.
I was thinking about this while I was having a brief shower this morning, and thinking, yeah, like how do I hold on to the past, and when have I clung to it so much? And for me, I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it. Really, I'm obviously very, very human. But I realise I've been very unforgiving about myself. I've looked back at the past, and yes, I've definitely had a sort of feeling of victimhood, but I've really created it myself, and used guilt quite a lot. And for a long time, I felt like guilt was a really helpful thing. And I guess it does serve a purpose or two. But guilt is also about making everything about yourself, isn't it?
Yes.
Like when
Yes.
you feel guilty about something, you're regurgitating something that's happened in the past, and you're making a situation all about yourself, like, oh, if only I had done more, or if only this, or if only that. And so I've lived in if onlys, a lot. And I guess at some level, it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't. There's some comfort in recognizing where you've been, maybe understanding your identity. I think I go there particularly in times when there's lots of new choices ahead of me, with the insecurity of what now? It's like, oh, hello, old friend of beating myself up. It's a
Yeah.
funny one, isn't it?
It's understandable. The ego, when we're truly in present time, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's let me just close that off. Sorry, can you hear that?
Yeah, I did. Is that an alarm? Have
Yeah.
you got something important?
No, it's somebody trying to call me.
Oh,
But it's gone now. The ego wants us in the past or in the future.
mm-hmm.
All right. So when we're truly in present time, there is no ego present. So it tries to encourage us back into the past or encourage us into the future.
Yes.
And so there's no harm in just scanning back in the past to look at something. How do we do this? How do we create this? So on and so forth.
Mm.
It's when we're compulsively going back there and not looking at what have I gained from the experience, but what has happened to me. And it's almost as if we're divesting any responsibility for that, what happened to us. And we really have to understand that we are creating a reality, and we're attracting people and places and circumstances to us that in some cases may be jolly uncomfortable and painful,
Yeah.
right? In order for us to learn and move on. When we take full responsibility for that, we'll see it that, oh yeah, I gained a lot from that experience. There's no victimhood there. And of course the ego wants to become the victim because it attracts attention. We can get attention from that.
Yes, that definitely rings a bell or two, quite loudly. Ding, ling, ling. Over this last week, I met up with somebody who I've done a few shows with, Gillian Alexander, and when we were meeting last week, we were talking about why we might choose to be here right now, which oddly enough brings you straight back into the present and really puts you in that place of owning your life, owning your situation, and taking full responsibility. And so we started playing, and it's been a bit of a theme for this last week. I've been, when I've been working with my clients, I've been, saying, so what are you choosing right now? What are you choosing right now in this moment? And when you're in that place of choice, it puts you in it. Well, it gives you the opportunity to choose a different story and to choose, just make a completely different call on something. And I guess that takes you away from the ego, doesn't it? The ego, like you say, likes a tried and tested, true path to where it's been, and it's always wanting to take you back. So it's feeling the relevance of it. And one of the things I've noticed since I've been, talking in terms of what I'm choosing right now in this moment, it's like every moment is a new moment. Every breath is a choice. Every you can just change things, and I think that's kind of bewildering. I think a lot of people are out of the habit of really feeling like they're making a choice. They go to a shop and people say, what would you like, at your regular eatery or whatever, and most people think they're having a choice, but they're just remembering what they liked last time and most likely ordering it, or ordering something they saw somebody else eat and enjoy. How how much of our sort of current reality is really fresh and new, and how much of it is really coming from our past sensory data and longing for different things. It's quite a big subject, really, isn't it?
I mean, that's a great point. I mean, if you look at where we are now, our entire past has shaped who we are today.
Yeah.
Whether it was happy, sad, miserable, joyful, whatever it is that we've endured and created, whether we take responsibility for that or acknowledge that, it has shaped, the past has shaped us who we are today. So if we can shift our attention from away from, I would have done something different, or I wish I had done something different. We can't change the past. We can't change it at all. And I can tell you with 100% certainty that I have no idea what's going to happen 2 hours from now with 100% certainty. I can imagine, but I have no idea what's going to happen in the past, and I cannot do anything about the future, and I can't do anything about the past. So it's really, it's folly to go back there and think, oh, I wish I'd done that. I would look back and say, well, I wouldn't make that choice again. And I can assure you, I've done some really stupid, dangerous, crazy stuff in my life. And all of those I've arrived at a point where, well, I wouldn't make that choice again. But how would I know that unless I've made those choices? And that's why we have an ego, and that's why we experiment with life, is to determine, what do I want if I don't want this? If I don't want this that I've created, or this circumstances, this job, this place, this relationship, if I don't want that, what do I want? So we have to have that duality, and now we shine the light of consciousness on it, we would make different choices and modify our behaviors.
Yeah, well, I can see I'm definitely using the past to do that. Because when you were saying, I've done some crazy old shit in the past, woohoo, and you've had a good old giggle, I was, giggling with you and thinking, my God, I have as well. And in that moment, oh my goodness, what process did I go through? Rather than thinking of all these amazing experiences I've had, I went to these shameful moments where, yes, I did some crazy stuff. And boy, I wouldn't do that again. And wasn't I out of control? And what a terrible person I am. And yes, that does help to inform my present and my future, hopefully, in as much as I'm definitely rejecting some of those aspects of my past. But also in having those really strong reactions to the past, I'm also holding on to it, holding on to this
Yes.
idea of who I was. And in rejecting it, I'm kind of pulling it in as well because it's such a strong feeling.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the ego loves to take those circumstances and situations and
Mhm.
turn them against us because that's the nature of it. It makes a judgment. The ego judges, so it will judge a situation in the past. Oh, this was good and this is bad.
Yeah.
Therefore, if you've made a bad decision, then you must be a bad person. Right? And
Yeah.
then it erodes away all of the goodness, and we tend to focus on all the bad stuff we've done instead of the monumental good stuff that we've done,
Mm.
and just take away the judgment. It
Yeah.
was all we've done is had an experience.
Yes.
That's how I see it. I don't judge it. It was just an experience. And would I knowingly, consciously put myself into that experience again? No, I wouldn't. I'd make a different choice. But
Yeah.
all it was an experience. And that's the beauty of the duality, is we've came into this dualistic multiverse in
Mm.
order to experience the duality and experience our creations.
Yeah.
And it's only the ego mind that judges them, good or bad, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I can see we've got people watching, and I wonder like how other people are holding on to their past, and judging themselves and what their experience is. I mean, I would imagine. Sorry, I've got a bit of an itchy ear here. There we go. I would imagine that yes, we are holding on to our past representations in times of pain, like like we're remembering things that we don't want to do, and also remembering joyful things, and they're the things that we're longing for. Um, and and so I would imagine that for a lot of people, what they're holding on to are the good old days, when we felt like maybe we had life as we wanted, um, and and at some level, the familiarity with that is what we're kind of longing for, that kind of safety blanket of some sort. Um, yeah, that ego is a really tricky thing. It's really got me pondering now. Because like astrologically, I mean, when I'm working with clients, I'm looking at the tendencies, at the like planetary alignments that have happened for them, key points, and also the amount of these key points taking place at the same time. And I can look and I can say, wow, that was an intense time, and you are likely to be going through this. And so I use it to be able to help them see that there are similar patterns coming up, and you've got choice points. Um, hmm. Yeah. So I don't really know what to say about that at the moment. I'm just in a kind of place of what's going on. And I guess that's one of the things about, like when your ego, um, if you're not really going down a particular route, and the ego is really wanting to express itself or be heard, it's going to be wanting things to grip onto. And I'm trying not to grip onto anything at the minute, and be in the flow of this conversation. So where do we need to focus on now? I'll put it over to you. Where do we need to go now in the conversation?
Um, the mind is everything, and it will latch on to any statement,
Yeah.
whether it be deemed good or bad,
Mhm.
and it can play it out. Because if you look at how we create our reality, it starts with a thought.
Yeah.
We start thinking about what we would like to create, whether it's, again, good or bad.
Mm.
And so the mind will latch onto something. So in terms of astrology, if we make an astrological prediction
Mhm.
to somebody, and I don't mean this in any derogatory way,
No,
right?
I
But
I
if we
have
make a prediction, right,
yeah.
and that person takes that on wholesale as this is what I can expect,
Yeah.
then I'll say it tends to be a little bit disempowering if the
Yeah.
person just swallows into that and dives into that and say, oh, Mercury's in retrograde, therefore I'm going to have all this stuff happen to me, right? Right. It tends to dissemble the sovereignty that we are, the powerful
Yeah, I
infinite
agree.
being that we are. So, and the mind will just grab hold of anything that it wishes that sounds good to it. And of course, what we need to do is to look at, okay, well, that was just a statement. Does it ring true for me? Yes, it does. Good.
Yeah.
Work with that until it doesn't.
Yes. Yeah.
But you can see how propaganda can work, that if you're being bombarded with propaganda
Yeah.
day out, that is shaping people's thoughts. And what we've seen over the last 2.5 years, 3 years,
Yeah.
is the shaping of fear in people's thought process. We need to rise above that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That really resonates with a few conversations I've been having in this last short while, in fact. Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about astrology, because that's one of my biggest misgivings about like using patterns to maybe predict, and then the ego using it as a stick to beat you with. I find that very disempowering, in fact. And I'm definitely not a Mercury retrograde gloomer. I see it as a time for us to, whilst you're napping there, Rick, it looks like you've disappeared altogether. I know you've gone in those moments, because all of a sudden the sound of the cicadas disappears and it goes really, really quiet. He looks so peaceful, doesn't he? Could you imagine him as your spiritual guru, just chilling out? Look, there he is with his eyes closed in his meditation. I think it's lovely, Rick, that this video has stopped right at a moment where you're looking so beatific. It's really lovely. But anyway, in terms of using, I've lost him altogether. No, you're stuck with me now. In terms of using the cycles of the planets to plan your future. So I'm trying to get my mouse working. It's fallen asleep. Let's get this name off. It's a little bit in the way. In using the cycles to be able to predict, yes, it's a useful tool, and it can show you some of the environment that you might be walking into, but I think it is very damaging to just assume that's all that there is. I always see these things as a moment for choice. You know, what are you choosing in this moment, and how can you choose differently, and why might you want to choose differently? I'm, if anything, I'm sort of like delighted that we get these opportunities to revisit cycles from a new perspective. You know, like we might have gone around the circle a little bit more. We might recognize, last time I did this, that was not quite the expectation. That was not quite the outcome I was hoping for. Let's go around a little bit more and amp up this side of my personality. Or, you know, so I see it as an opportunity to really get quite practiced in working with your energy. Now, I don't know where you are in your life right now in terms of appreciating where you are in relationship to where you've been. It's such a strong subject in me, because I realize that I would not probably, if I was to find myself single again, or find myself not knowing what to do with my life, I would react very differently to how I did in the past. Recognizing that I made my identity about grief and mourning and upset, because the person that I wanted in my life was no longer there, was I made such a big deal out of it. It was huge, and I didn't know how to process it. And I realized what an immense psychic drain I was in, just continuously replaying things over and over again. And no doubt you've done similar, with relationship breakups or going back to the good old days when you worked with a good team or this, that, and the other. But things do change. Things are changing in every single moment. And I think this is a moment just for us to enjoy that moment of recognizing that we've got a choice. We don't have to do things in the same way. So anyway, I'm going to bring this to an end. I thank you for joining us today, wherever you've been in the world. Obviously, Rick's in Bali, and that's not always it's not always somewhere where we have really good connections using the internet. And I'm here in Portugal, and as you can see, it's like 6:30 a.m. It's actually 7 o'clock in the morning now, and my eyes, I'm still I'm trying to wake up. But thank you for joining us for this conversation. Let us know if there's an aspect of it you want us to go in deeper with. And yeah, I'm wishing you a day ahead of freedom and choice, where you can look at your day and think, let's do this differently. I don't need to hold on to my past choices. Let's try something new and let's see what happens. Anyway, lots and lots of love to you wherever you are in the world. Enjoy your day ahead, making new choices, and we'll speak to you real soon. Bye for now.